Hi, my name is Vinayak,
My name is Ayush.
and we're here to offer you unwarranted movie reviews.
For today's episode, which happens to be our first episode, we have Pestonjee from 1988, a film directed by Vijay Mehta, starring quite a star-studded lineup with Naseeruddin Shah, Shabana Azmi, and Kirron Kher. The
And
movie is
Anupam
set
Kher.
and Anupam Kher, yes. The movie is set in 1950s and 1960s Bombay within the Parsi community. The film sort of follows two best friends, Pestonjee and Piroj, who are these two Parsi bachelors, both towards the sort of start of their middle age, both looking to get married. The film's premise is based on the fact that both Pestonjee and Piroj want to get married, and find that they both fall for the same, or they both are matched with the same lady, Shabana Azmi, named Jeroo in the movie. Jeroo ultimately ends up marrying Pestonjee. This puts Piroj in a bit of an awkward situation, and leads him to indirectly leave Bombay for a period of 5 years to sort of get some distance from the couple, who we still maintain friendly relationships with. It's important to be noted. Now, over this 5 year period, Firosha develops a very idealized sense of what Jeroo and Pestonjee's marriage looks like. Right? He imagines them to be having a child soon. He has this really flowery image of returning to Bombay and finding this really happy couple, expecting a child, and just general happiness. Upon his return from Bhusawal, which is a town in Maharashtra, 5 years after his departure from Bombay for a short vacation, he actually finds that um, Jeroo, who was this really happy, bubbly, and cheerful woman when he left, is now absolutely distraught. The marriage is an absolute shambles. Pistonji and Jeroo don't seem to be getting along at all. The baby that they were expecting to arrive doesn't arrive. And the movie in the second half, after his return from Bombay, sort of slips into this journey of this of all the characters' general sadness being unraveled. Everyone in the second half of the movie is in somewhat of a depressed state, and that I think is where the real sort of fruit of the movie sort of comes to bear. Oh
Right.
yeah, one more interesting thing about this movie was that the director Vijaya Mehta said that she chose the Parsi community for reasons that we will also discuss later, but also because up until that point, which was 1988, the Parsi community in Bollywood had purely been represented in this very stereotypical sort of comical fashion. You always often had this stereotypical Parsi uncle or auntie who had these very quirky Parsi mannerisms. However, the director said that she in this movie wanted to actually capture a more well-rounded sort of view and sort of context of the Parsi community in Bombay. So that's another reason that this film is quite significant to that manner.
The other reason that seems to fit well with the uh, with the way the movie unfolds is the question of marriage within the Parsi community. It's a community with a relatively small population, and also one that is constricted by endogamy. So the question that's where the movie first begins with the question of matchmaking. The matchmaker finds the same woman Jeroo for both Pesi and Pirocha, and that's where the sort of drama begins. Um, the movie seems to deal with the question of uh, capital in marriage. It slowly builds around the futility of marriage and shows that what actually remains of marriage is the transfer of capital, and the way that the capital is transferred from one generation to the next through the production of babies.
Yeah, and and this point about sort of the passage of capital through babies and the production of future generation is important, and it becomes quite apparent in as the movie progresses. This baby, right, that everyone is waiting for, particularly Firoz Shah when he's in Bombay. He's constantly writing to Pestonji, inquiring about the baby. He's inquiring his female staff he's working with. When you find out if a woman is pregnant, he's constantly inquiring about the women's children. he just has this general obsession with this baby, right, coming through as a result of this marriage. And it is sort of brought to sort of seem like that is the crux of what this marriage is supposed to bring, right? The most important outcome from this marriage is to be the baby. We see, however, when he goes back to Bombay, that the baby never came because of what is initially said to him is a miscarriage. Later on, however, he goes on to find that Jeroo never wanted, or Pestonjee rather tells him that Jeroo never wanted a baby, and there's actually hints that the baby was aborted. Now, the baby not coming from this sort of union between Pestonjee and Jeroo is significant because we find out later in the movie that the baby actually comes. There is a baby, firstly, and rather than coming from this union between Jeroo and Pestonjee, it actually comes from this extramarital affair that Pestonjee is having with this woman named Soona. And that's significant because it again sort of goes to show and reinforces this view that the marriage was ultimately futile and not very important at all. Soona is a very interesting character in the movie. She is initially hired by Pestonjee to fight a case on his behalf to gain some property from his brother that their dad left the both of them.
Where we also see the question of capital and
Yeah.
about the retention of capital.
Yeah. So Soona initially, Piroj Shah has this really, really negative perception of Soona when he first stumbles upon her at a party being held by his boss. Soona is actually a very important character in this movie. She's played by Kirron Kher. Soona is this lawyer that Pestonjee hires to represent him in a case against his brother for some property that their father left the both of them. And again, this is sort of a representation again of this problem of capital, right, and the passage of capital. Now, Soona is a half Parsi, half Punjabi woman who Piroj Shah actually comes across for the first time at a party being held by his boss. He's immediately extremely put off by Soona as a woman and as a Parsi, right? Soona is this widow. She, however, appears to be rather untaken by the whole process of her being a widow. She's very forthcoming. She smokes, as Piroj Shah keeps asserting. How can she smoke? She keeps puffing away. Look at her. She also very nonchalantly says that she loves rich young Parsi bachelor boys. But it's important to note here that Soona is a character in the movie who, unlike the other three characters, views marriage as this very transactional activity. She does see it as something that is done purely for the accumulation of wealth and for the accumulation of other sort of assets, properties, and things of that nature. And it's important because later on in the film, we'll see how that sort of plays a role in unraveling the entire story.
And in absolute contrast to Soona's indifference to marriage, we have our central character through which we view most of the other characters, which is Piroj Shah. Piroj Shah, like Ayush said earlier, is in absolutely taken by the prospect of marriage. He envies his friend Pesi for having the perfect wife. He's sad because he didn't have that opportunity. He envies the couple for having the opportunity to have a child. He's mad at them because they end up not having one. So when he finds that his friend has actually abandoned this miraculous gift that he had been lucky to have, and instead starts sleeping with Soona, then we see his world kind of crumbling. Like he's lost the one thing that he found some meaning in life from, even though that thing didn't exist in his own life. He lived the marital experience through his friend, but now his friend has even given it up. And that kind of shows up in the name of the movie itself. Though it mostly tells us the story from the point of view of Piroj Shah, it's called Pestonjee. And it like Ruth Vanita has said in an early review of the movie, the movie gives to us a sort of privileging of what the narrator sees rather than who the narrator is as the person that is seeing. Piroj Shah is constantly looking at Pesi, and he seems to be propelled more by the person that he is not than the person that he is, which which poses a really existential question, like who am I? Am I the person that I want to be, or am I the person that I am? Then, and if I'm somewhere in between, then who am I?
Another sort of unraveling that happens for Piroj Shah is through Jeroo. First, he sort of sees definitely his best. He sees the world through the eyes of his best friend, or sort of in the context of his best friend. But he also does throughout the movie put Jeroo on this pedestal of sorts, right, where he thinks of her as this magic bullet that is going to cure everything, whatever what that thing is. We don't really know, but he sort of sees her as this really really desirable person that he's missed out on from having in his life. He gets mad, extremely mad, at when he finds out that Pestonjee has been cheating on Jeroo and having an extramarital affair because of how he's wronged Jeroo. Another sort of unraveling that happens for Piroj Shah, in addition to that of the one that happens between him and Pestonjee, is between him and Jeroo. So throughout the movie, Piroj Shah has this really positive view of Jeroo, in that he thinks she is this magic bullet who will bring happiness to everyone's lives, particularly Pestonjee, since she married him. And he has this view that he's missed out on having the opportunity to marry her. He sees her as this really well-educated Parsi girl who plays the piano, who comes from a rich family in Aden, in Yemen. Um, Also, when he finds out that Pestonjee is having an extramarital affair with Soona and is cheating on Jeroo, he is absolutely furious with Pestonjee. He can't get over the fact that Jeroo is being wronged, and that she's got the bad end of a bargain here in terms of this marriage. In a dream sequence, which sort of gives us a window into Piroj Shah's subconscious, or unconscious rather, uh, we see that this really like painful image where uh, Jeroo is standing at the bottom of a well or a corridor of sorts, and yelling very loudly, saying, "Piroj Shah, mujhe bachao." Right. So he has this really, really strong ingrained view that she's being wronged, and she's a really good person who doesn't deserve this to be happening to her. What happens later on in the movie, however, is that this tends to change. This does change. Early on in the movie, Jeroo, when she first comes to Pestonjee's house after getting married, she complains of this headache. She says that I have a headache, it doesn't seem to go away. Pestonjee tells Piroj Shah that she always sleeps with the fan off and the windows closed because she has a sinus problem. Um, uh, Throughout the movie, we keep seeing these reiterations of people around Jeroo saying she finds happiness in sorrow, or she finds happiness in sadness, rather. Now, after Pestonjee dies, which is an important part of this movie, Pestonjee dies rather abruptly. Um, Piroj Shah goes to visit Jeroo to inquire about how she's doing in general. He goes to her with an investment plan to sort of reallocate the funds that Pestonjee has left her. This unraveling of Piroj Shah's perception of Jeroo takes place in a very significant moment when, after Pestonjee's death, which happens very abruptly, Piroj Shah goes to visit Jeroo to check up on her and to make sure she's doing okay, and also with some investment plans which she could use to reinvest the money that Pestonjee has left her in his will. Um, uh, when he does actually end up visiting her, though, she's complaining about this headache. And now, early on in the movie, the very first scene of the movie, you see her complaining about this very same headache. Pestonjee confides in Piroj Shah that um, Jeroo is always complaining about her headache. She doesn't let me put the fans on at night. She makes me shut the windows when I sleep because she has a sinus problem. You have multiple people throughout the movie insinuating that Jeroo finds happiness in sadness, things of that nature. And then, yet again, when Piroj Shah visits Jeroo after the death of her husband, he only finds her complaining about her headache, her acidity, and her asthma. When Piroj Shah tries to improve the situation by saying, you know what, I have these investment plans, you could use them. Pestonjee has left you some money in his will. She just shirks it by saying, what do I need the money for now? It's not like I'm going to go see Europe or America. She had this very I don't care about life anymore sort of view, right? Um, Another thing that Jeroo had been really passionate about early on in the movie, 5 years ago when she got married to Pestonjee, was giving piano lessons to kids in the colony. Um, this didn't happen over the course of the 5 years. And when Piroj tells her, "Hey, I've spoken to the kids in the colony and they're quite interested in taking piano classes from you. Would you be interested in me setting it up?" She again shirks it by saying, "I don't know if I want to do piano classes." And she has this general sort of sorrow that is clear she hasn't been able to let go from the very start of the movie, from the very time she sort of got married to Pestonjee, or possibly even from before that. Um,
So this interiority of Jeru's character offers us something that's in total contrast to how Piroj Shah views her, and this simultaneously breaks his trust in the concept of how marriage would make everything perfect, but also in the concept of how people can be perfect and full and complete. And it gives, and so the movie gives us a picture of being where things maybe don't end up being perfect, and that some people do find sadness and happiness in sadness, and some people are besotted to sadness, and there's not really anything that one can do about it.
Right, and just before this is other really interesting scene towards the very end of the movie when Pirojsha goes to collect Pestonjee's will, and the will actually is with Soona, the lady he was having an extramarital affair with. And while leaving there, I mean, we know that throughout the movie he had this really negative perception of Soona because he saw her as some sort of a home wrecker, a very sort of out there lady trying to sort of rob Pestonjee of his wealth. But while he was leaving from there, after having spoken to her, and after having found out that while Jeroo was not able, or Jeroo didn't want to give Pestonjee a child, which is something he was very passionate about. It's very clear in the movie that he loved children and he used to play with the colony kids all the time. Uh, Soona was able to, Soona did want to give him a child and did give him a child ultimately, thereby bringing some sort of happiness to Pestonjee's life. So throughout the movie, this negative perception that he has does sort of become alleviated, and he also starts seeing Soona's sort of ultimate objectives and ultimate aims,
And
and
but
respecting them.
also her
Yeah,
generosity, and the fact that she wasn't that she does not believe in the sanctity of marriage does not mean that she does not love Pesi, or that she is not uh, she's not, I don't know, she's just not, it's not that she's not in it, or she's not involved in that relationship. Through the course of the movie, we see the protagonist Firoz Shah and also the viewer gets slowly disillusioned with the concept of marriage and with the concept of a complete selfhood and a fulfilling life. And what we do get is a fragmented view of life and a world where things don't actually all come together, and and also a way of living or becoming that we see in the character of Soona, who, though she may be half Parsi, half Punjabi, and not pure, and not and already and a widowed, so not a desirable spinster, and interested in money, so not a pure soul, but she is a survivor, and she is a person who actually gives us and Pirojsha a way out of the drudgery and the stagnancy of the life to which he was earlier committed, and offers him and us a way of uh, being out there in the world.
yep.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching. That was our very first Unwarranted movie review, and thank you for joining us. You can find the trailer to the movie in the description below, and please let us know what you think. Bye bye.
Bye bye. See you guys next week. Right. Yeah. Okay, guys. Now we wrap it up.